And welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, and we're continuing on with the garden tour with 2 videos. So this is going to be part 2. And always make sure that you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. And welcome to all of the new subscribers. Some of you are from Cheyenne that we have met each other. You've came to pick up plants, so welcome into the group. And into my YouTube channel. So it's good to see you here. Hopefully you'll get some tips and advice. I'm not the best in the world. I'm not a master gardener or anything like that. I'm working on trying to figure out how to do that. But we just see what works in Cheyenne soil and in northern soil and cold temperature soil. So welcome here, and hopefully you get something out of it. So that's all of our onions, nice and bulbing up. Definitely have picked up in growth in the last few days. Even though they were looking great before, they have really just started putting on us some size to them, especially even the green sections. I did an experiment with cutting tops off of a couple of the onions, and to be honest, they just grew right back. There was no real difference that I saw as far as any bulb rotting or anything like that. They just went ahead and grew right back. So I'm just not even going to bother with it. They seem to be bulbing up just fine without that. So, and I think it just has to do with time. You have to give them time. And again, we've got those 2 tomato plants that are struggling back there. I'm going to go ahead and get those pulled out and replaced with some suckers that we have rooted. And we're going to have more suckers rooted that I'm going to throw into pots for people to enjoy, because they are already good and established tomato plants that should produce before the first frost. And then we've got some trimming to do, because we've got some, we've already trimmed before, but we need to trim again on some of these tomato plants just to make sure they get good air circulation in here, because if they don't get good air circulation, sometimes you won't have very large tomatoes. We're not really removing a whole lot of suckers. Some of the suckers I'm leaving on there, but some, just because I know people enjoy getting already established tomato plants, I'm removing some of the suckers just to get them rooted and get them growing into whole new plants for people to enjoy. And then next season, I think what we're going to do is, because a lot of people don't have time, they're having to work, and honestly, I'm mostly retired, is I'm going to start extra seedlings for people to enjoy for free, because I, like a lot of other people, noticed this season the extreme inflation in getting plants. Just going to a store and picking up some Bonnie plants, most of them were single plants, and they were upwards of like $4.98 a piece. And it's just ridiculous, especially in times like this. And it does not take a huge amount of investment in getting plants growing. A lot of times you just put them in some soil and they're fine. So I'm going to start plants for people, because I know that the inflation is just going to get worse. It's not going to get any better. So next season, and with my own seeds that I've saved over the years, I'll start some plants, I will start extras, and then I'll be giving those out more than what I did this season with rooted suckers. So look forward to that. If you're someone here in Cheyenne and you want to get some plants from me, that's what I'm going to be doing. And I don't ask anything in return. I don't want anything in return. I'm just going to start extra plants because I have plenty of containers, and hopefully people will be inspired and motivated to grow their own food and not rely so much on the system for food. Especially the produce in Cheyenne can be spotty sometimes. It's not good quality. It's been sitting around a while. It gets here in the stores and it's already bruised. It's already too far gone, all kinds of things. Just as an example, I bought a package of blackberries, because unfortunately I don't have blackberries or raspberry vines here. That's going to change. And I bought some, and within like 2 days they were already molded. So that's just, to me, is just ridiculous. So we will be starting some plants for everybody so they can get fresh produce. The peas, that's what you're looking at right now in the back behind the tomatoes, are just out of this world. There are peas all over the vines. And next year I'm going to do 2 rows. Well, technically I have 6 rows in here. They're a couple inches apart. But next season I'm going to do, how about we say 2 bunches, two sets of trellises. So I'll have like 12 rows at that point. But I didn't even plant another row after this because I was just like, oh my gosh, I have so many peas. Some of the peas are the super snappy, so they're either shelling or you can eat fresh in the pod. So we've got those, and they are just, there's like 13 peas in each pod. We've got Cascadia peas, and we have the Alaskan snow peas, and they are just amazing. The super snappy are on this side of the trellis, and then on the other side of the trellis is the Cascadia and Alaskan snow peas. And the blooms on those, is on the Alaskan snow peas, are just so pretty. Just grow them for the aesthetics if you don't even want the peas. The little blooms are purple and pink, so they're so pretty, and the other ones are white so far. The Cascadia are white. The super snappy seems to be more of a light purple, the whole bloom, but just the mixtures of the bloom colors, just so pretty. And the vines are pretty. So, and I've got a couple more rows that aren't even bloomed yet. They just now started getting runners, and that's the ones that I planted later. So those will be coming on very soon, and they'll start blooming, and we'll have more peas. But right now we have just bunches of peas in here that'll be ready in the next couple of days. My goodness, I don't know what we'll do with all the peas, to be honest. I guess I'll just freeze them. We need to get in there today and pull some lettuce out. It's actually not lettuce, it's mustard. We had a gourmet blend, and it has some mustard in it. And the mustard has already started trying to go to seed, so we're going to get in there and pull some of that out and let some of the other lettuces that are underneath it come on. All of it's looking beautiful back there. It was last season, and it is again this season. So just that little area is just fantastic for lettuce. All of our collards are doing amazing through here. So much growth on those since the last video even. And it looks like we need to get in here and thin some of those out, so that way we can get the plants a lot larger. And our yellow straight neck squash, just getting massive now. A couple of the plants were a little bit later because we transplanted around, just to fill in some spots, but they are catching up very quickly. But looking fantastic. We've got some blooms on some, and even some little tiny squash that are coming on. I don't know about the okra, I'll admit that. It was an experiment this year to see if we could get anything going. I think I should have put those in containers, but again, it was my daughter who really likes okra. I'm not a huge fan of okra unless it's fried. So we either get something out of the okra or we do not. But either way, it's at least looking pretty to be small. And we've got some red curry squash over here, and of course we have the red curry over against the beans as well. They're just being red curry squash. They are runners are coming up on them. They're starting to get blooms. All of that, I did thin those out and threw those into pots and gave those out to people as well. I transplanted one just to fill in a spot, as you can see right there, and it perked back up even less time than I told everyone that it would be in the last video, which was just 2 days ago. I said that it probably would be a couple of days of it being wilty, and then it would perk up. Well, it perked up within a few hours. So that's looking great. This one here was planted later just to fill in a hole, so it's starting to really pick up in growth now. But the rest of them, we have runners, and looking forward to setting squash soon. And then, of course, we've got all of our zinnias through here, bachelor's buttons, and other flowers. We've got some cosmos and some marigolds, all of that going on in here, and they are all doing great. We've got a couple of blooms on our calendula. Looks like an orange and a yellow for the first blooms, and they're just looking great. And then, of course, we've got staggered planting, so we have some more coming on behind that. And even the calendula, I had came in here and had some of them come up between the onions. So I took those out and put those into a pot. And they looked beautiful. They were getting ready to bloom. They had one zinnia that had come up in the onions as well. So I put that in there in the center, and then calendula all around it, and it was just so healthy and getting ready to bloom. So I gave that out to a girl who came to pick them up named Renee, and she loved it, and so they got a happy place to go. And I've been getting updates from different people that had came out to pick up some plants of what their plants are doing, and they're all growing great. Only one was lost, and that was a borage, and it was because of the heat. So all the rest of them are doing great with everybody. So that is fantastic. It's one of the best things I could ask for, because I love my plants. All of my peppers are doing amazing, and I did get a cultivator, which is like a 4-tine cultivator, but it was a lot more expensive, so my partner actually found one that's a lot cheaper, and I went ahead and washed that one up and took that one back because we found one that was way cheaper, like significantly cheaper, but better quality as well. So anyway, it did a good job as far as getting in here and getting cultivated. You can see the soil is all loosened up a lot around everything. And of course, between each of the pepper plants, we planted some beets because of the space and all that. And the pepper plants are not going to get super, super huge anyway, especially not here in this climate. So we've got some beets in between each one of the peppers, and then beets between each of the celery as well. We've been getting celery stalks off of our celery. In fact, it's getting to the point that it just about could be harvested. But I think what we're going to do is leave it all the way up till the last and just keep harvesting stalks off of it, because you can do that. And it'll continue putting stalks out. So I think we're going to leave it till the last and just keep pulling stalks off as we need. But the flavor is, if you have not grown celery, please grow celery, because the flavor, I've noticed that when you get store-bought celery, it the flavor is completely different. This celery that we're growing is a tango variety. The flavor on it actually has flavor. The celery that we buy from the store, I have noticed a huge difference. There's not a whole lot of flavor to the celery we buy in the store. Please grow your own celery, because the taste difference is amazing. Our zucchini is doing amazing still. Like I said, we've got some blooms on the biggest plant, and then some little squash that are coming on. Everybody seems to be really healthy and doing great. And our cabbages, again, are still just heading up. We've got some pretty big heads on some of them, especially that one right back there. But they look beautiful. They're nice and healthy. We've only had a little bit of pest pressure on them, and again, I think it's the ants just biting holes in the leaves to get some water. But they haven't seemed to overall destroy any of the plants, except for when they're really little, they would clip them off sometimes, I think by accident. So we lost a couple of plants to that, but otherwise, cabbage is looking great. Broccoli looking amazing. And the little one that we transplanted out of my grandson's garden is picking up in growth and doing just fine. It's kind of hard to see it back there, but it is back there. It is growing. And I started putting out new leaves. Cauliflower is doing fantastic. Of course, we will be not getting heads on those until right towards the last part of the season. They're always really slow here. But there they are. And the broccoli should not be too much longer, especially that one. It should start throwing up a head pretty soon, because the stalk is getting pretty massive. And then we've got these cabbages up here, and they're getting shaded a bit by these sunflowers that have came up. So when it comes to me losing cabbage, I may actually take some of these sunflowers out. So even though they're really good, healthy looking plants, I may take them out and just put them in a pot, just to prevent them from killing off the other plants, because that sometimes happens if you have sunflowers come up and they shade everything. I'm not sure about the red cabbages. The red cabbages are starting to head up, as you can see in the center, but they are so much slower in comparison with any other cabbages. So I'm just not sure that they will do anything, but we hope that they will. Yukon gold potatoes are still blooming like crazy. They have put up a second set of blooms, and I've heard old wives' tale one time that the amount of blooms that they have is the amount of potatoes that you have under the soil, but I don't believe that. But if that is the case, then we're going to have a lot of potatoes, because some of these, like those clusters, have a huge amount of blooms on them. I don't know. This was just an experiment to see if they would grow over here. And I think next year that I will actually put all of my potatoes all along this area and change out where I have the carrots and stuff like that and the lettuce, because I think it's getting a little bit too shaded back there. But I've noticed that the potatoes don't seem to mind it. So I think I'll put all of my potatoes over here next season, just because then that'll leave the rest of the more sunny parts of the garden for other things. But they are doing beautifully. These plants are like 3 feet tall. Just huge amount of growth on these. And then, of course, all of our planters and pots and things like that are doing amazing. We've actually got some new bloom heads coming up on the roses that I transplanted into the clay pots. Let me see if I can find it again. Right here is a little bloom. And we've got some rose hips on these. I'm not real sure if we can use those. I'm going to have to check them out. This is knockout roses, so I'm not sure we can use them, but we'll try. And there's another little bloom head on that one. And we've had a lot of issues with mosquitoes this year. Has everyone been experiencing issues with mosquitoes? Because we've had more than we've ever had. And I usually do not get bitten, but I have gotten bitten so many times this year. Our lavender is really picking up in growth that we started from seed. So that is just a true lavender, I think. And it's doing great. And then our fuchsia just keeps blooming like crazy. The only issue I've had with my fuchsia is I keep having it get really tall like this, and I come in and I trim it off, but then that, will stop it from blooming for a little bit. But we want it to be bushier and not taller, so I need to come in here and trim those out again. And a lot of them get bent, like this one right here wants to spill out over the side, and it's bushy, but it just wants to spill out over the side instead of actually putting some height on it. We've got seed heads on our basil over here. This is this basil that's second season. So we should be getting some seeds off of those. They're blooming right now. And our delicata squash all along the fence and our beans are doing really well, other than the ants biting holes in them for water. But they're actually starting to put runners on, so they might have some beans on them. We'll find out. But the delicata squash in here doing really well, and I did put a couple of doll baby watermelons over here, and even those are starting to get a little bit bigger, but I don't think they're going to do anything before the end of the season. But at least they're plants in here and they look pretty. And we've got some sunflowers here that are doing just fine. And we did plant some replacement beans in here to replace some of the beans that were just eaten up by the ants. And those are coming on, and I haven't noticed as much damage by ants anymore. So I think that they've stopped doing that since it's been raining. So the beans that were already here are actually putting on new growth, and they're not as bad as it was before. And of course we've got our pots hanging along the fence. We've got a lavender in here. Only a couple of them that started, and again, this is the Schultz soil, so I'm not sure that they'll do anything really, because it's just so chunky and it was hot and all kinds of stuff, and it was just rushed. Looks like we might have a third one in here, so maybe we'll get some lavender out of that. I don't know. And here is our other rose that we have over here, and it is getting bloom heads as well. You can see that one there. So these perked right up after I went and took these. They were clearanced out for $5 each. And there's another bloom head there. So they perked right up after I picked them up and put them in a different pot. We've got some more flowers planted through here. Got some cosmos in there, you can see those, and I think we also planted some marigolds. And we're just about done blooming on this rose bush because it does that. It'll bloom a whole lot and then it'll bloom a second time, usually about in the first part of September. But it's put on a whole lot of new canes and growth. You can see that in there. And those are the ones that'll bloom in early September. Our comfrey is looking amazing. And again, that was a comfrey plant that was given to us for the plants that we gave to other people. And they brought me a comfrey plant. And it's looking great. Borage still looking amazing. Still blooming like crazy. And then the second one is blooming now. And then there is our white roses. They start out pink and then bloom out white. And it didn't bloom as much this season as it usually does. And that's probably because it got a lot of damage through the winter. But I did notice that it had seeded, or maybe a rose is coming up from one of the leading roots or something like that. But we have a little baby rose right there. And I might go ahead and get that out of there and put it into a planter or pot because I don't really need more roses in here. Nasturtium are a little bit behind the other nasturtium, but they are coming on. They look healthy. They're just smaller. And more bachelor's buttons in here, and they're doing great. So maybe they'll bloom before the end of the season. They're a little bit more shaded over here. Artichokes I don't think are going to actually do anything because it's getting so late in the season now for them. And they've put on growth but not huge amounts, and it's just too shaded over here. I need to move them back into where there's some more sun. There's going to be some moving around of some things and some making of different beds for next season. So look forward to that and getting some better growth out of some of this stuff. Everything is looking great. And that is the overall garden, main garden, as well as the second plot. Just a huge amount of growth on everything. We are harvesting some things. We have eaten some peas, we've eaten some beans, some lettuces, some celery, and some other things through here. Our pumpkins are looking amazing, and I made a big mistake with one of my pumpkins. And that was that I tried to do a little bit of training on the vine, and it accidentally snapped it off. So I did have to come in and trim it, but it will catch back up. It'll throw another runner on. So it didn't even skip a beat. It just started going ahead and putting another runner on. You can see it right there. So within one day, it was already picked up, back up in growth. So all of my pumpkins through here are looking great. Again, we've got white pumpkins in here, and the one that I've been growing for 6 years now, and some other different varieties in here. And we've got the Boston Marrow over here as well. 2 plants, they've got runners on them, blooming. So we should get some out of those. And we've got all of our beets through here and our rutabagas, and the rutabagas are starting to head up. Our beets are really putting on some size, and I'm assuming they're probably heading up as well. But I do need to get in here and really thin a lot of these beets because they're just too close together. And again, we've got the Jupiter beets, the colorful beets mix, which it looks like mostly the red came up, and gold beets in here. So we should have a variety. And we've kept having either volunteer tomatillos or volunteer ground cherries coming up. You can see one right back there all over this. So I have transplanted them around what I can. The rest, I've just been pulling them up because we don't have any room for them left, at least for now. Our kale is doing great now. It's starting to really pick up in growth. We've got a couple of celery in here. And I don't know if they'll do anything or not, but we'll try. And then we have some turnips in here. They're looking really good. We're going to get in here and thin some of those. And we have our lettuces out here. Just wanted to show you some of the lilies that we have blooming right now, especially this big yellow one. This one was a little bit of a surprise this season. We've got a couple of more that are red over here, and then we have an orange purple one. And the dogs are out right now, so you might hear them barking. But we do have more lilies blooming over in this section. We have some of the reds and more of the orange purple, and some black lilies that are getting ready to bloom. As I was mentioning in the last video, they begin turning red, and at least the blooms, and then they turn black when they open up. So we've got a bunch of those in here. And then we have some acorn squash over here that I'm getting ready to thin, and the Big Max pumpkins from Sandy at Suburban Homestead, Wyoming / Arizona. She's also the one that sent me the Boston marrows. And we did have a French pie pumpkin that came up. So it's not going to do anything. It's way too late in the season, but at least it came up. It just took a really long time to do it. So north side, not good for French pie pumpkins. And we have some sunflowers in here. These are a shorter variety that we have planted. And then our Gita squash over here. And it's trying to do something, but I don't think it's going to be able to. It's just so late in the season now. So at least it's trying. And then of course we have our other converted kiddie pool strawberries, and it has bloomed like crazy, had strawberries, and now it's starting to set runners. We've got a couple more strawberries coming on. But it's setting runners, and the runners are getting rooted. So we're going to have some whole other strawberry plants in here. So that is fantastic. It overwintered just fine. We lost a couple of the strawberry plants out of there, but the runners will replace those. And here's more of the black lilies. And you can see they turn red before they open up, and they're black. And then we've got a couple of more acorn squash over here. And then our rebounding rhododendron. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out. And we shall see you in the next one.